Well, we've just turned her back the right way around after doing all the rigging underneath, and that's the last time she's ever going to be upside down. So to fit the fuselage, we've got one or two things that we need to do on the fuselage to finish that off, and then we can have a look at how we fit the fuselage, which these points here all plug into it, and as do these. I'm not worried about those, but that I am a little bit. We've got a little bit of flex in there, but again, it's going to be another very fragile, tricky job. There is some very tricky moments to be done in this build. So yeah, once we've got the fuselage on, I'll be happy because we can then put the tail on, and we're all almost home and dry. So I'm gonna put this to one side now, and we're going to focus on what we need to do to finish the fuselage off. Right, some of these frames need to be painted in a wood brown that matches what we've done, which is somewhat tricky. I want to leave the little bolt details in the aluminium, so that is also somewhat tricky, but we're going to have a go. I'm going with ICM's deep brown as a sort of colour match. The frames quite probably would have been made separately, so them being a slightly different colour is not going to be an issue, but I don't think we're that far off actually. So yeah, and it's very similar to the brown used in other places as well, so I think we should be okay. So I'm going to paint these up next job, and then we can look at installing some of these, some of which go underneath. Now, it's not clear to me whether the centre section of that should be painted or not, but given that there's a whopping great ejector pin and a sort of location point that you can see, I think that should be painted in. So that's what we're going to do. Right, now I've popped that in, I'm not sure we'll get it out again, but we'll have a go. There we go. So, painting up my window frames is the next job. Okay, we have the glazing in now, which we use some ultra glue to put that in, and that's just drying off now. I've also added the proboscis, which is basically the chute for delivering the bombs that they hand drop through. There's a little hatch on the other side. Open the hatch, drop the bomb down, it drops out. I think the proboscis makes it look a little bit Flash Gordon-like. If you remember the original black and white series that was showed in picture houses, which was on TV when I was a kid. It looks very much like some of those. Just need some sparklers out the back and a strange buzzing noise, and I think we'd be there. So the next thing that I actually want to do is paint in the leather around here. So that is my next task, and rather than using the pale leather that we did on the seat, you can see I've got a bit of touch up to do. Because it's such a similar colour to that, I want to go with a darker colour. So I've got this leather brown from ICM, and I think that fits the bill rather nicely. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the dark leather brown, paint that all up, and yeah, that should look pretty cool then, hopefully. So that's my next task. Well, the fuselage is in, and that was a very, very difficult task indeed. Aligning the struts at the bottom that are attached to the fuselage, the struts going in here, you have to force the wings open to pop it in. You've got struts that you've got to marry up underneath. And aligning them all was really, it's been the most difficult part of the build. It's taken me about half an hour to put this into place. And really annoyingly, it's changed the tension of many of the parts, the floats, the center section, which means that some of the rigging, which was nice and tight and taut before I put the fuselage in, has now slackened off, which is really, really annoying, because it means I've got to chop that rigging out and re-rig. Which I'm not going to do now. I'm going to carry on with the build and finish the build, and I'll re-rig it once I've announced the build is complete. Just infuriating. I hadn't envisaged that the position of all this plastic stuff would change quite as dramatically as it has done. I mean, I've got sag on some of my supports between the, I mean, there's probably about a centimetre of play in that now. So what seems to have happened is, as you pop this in, it's forcing the wings to bend like that, which has brought the two floats, if the thumbs of my floats have brought them in, which is really really annoying. But I also seem to have got a little bit of slackening off in one or two places on the wings as well. But yeah, we might be able to sort that more easily. Anyway, it is what it is right now. This is now in, so the next part of the puzzle is to add on the tail, I think. Right, we're working through the final parts now. So we've got these, and we've got the tail, one of which I've managed to break off, so we need to repair that. And that's it really. So it's detail painting now, and we've got a little bit of filling to do. So there's a small amount of zinc just in there that wasn't present in all the propellers, I don't think, but in the one set that you have to use there is. Now these have brass tips, so we've not done brass tips before, so we'll be doing the laminate and then we'll have to do the brass tips separately, which will be interesting. We might do that as part of the masking process of doing the laminations, but it does give me the advantage of it's easier to hold while we're doing the lamination process. I don't have to try and hold it from in there. I can do it from the outside edge. So I'm using Perfect Plastic Putty, and I have to say that is a claim that they actually live up to. The granule in this putty is very, very fine, and well, it has now become a favourite go-to putty. So I have several in my stash of fillers, and this is definitely my favourite. So I will use the other ones up, but it doesn't get, it dries really quickly, it doesn't shrink, it's very, very fine, and the results are really, really good. So yeah, if you've not tried this, it's definitely worth having a go with it, because I'm finding it really good. Right, so I'm going to let those bits dry. and that means that we can focus on some of these other bits, some of which we won't be putting on until the tail's on, but we've got some other bits that we can start painting up now. So I think we're going to do the ammunition next, so we need a copper for that. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a black first, just to get that off and running. So you can see it's already primed. So let's see what we've got. We'll put some black down first, and I just want to find my copper. Yeah, let me find a copper paint and then we'll crack on. Right, so we'll start by putting a black down, because we're going to be using some metallics. Making sure we've got that in all of the spaces. So we're using a Vallejo black here. Advantage of that is it's very quick drying. The painting instructions are not the clearest. So for example, the paint instruction for the ammunition container here, it says A and H. So A being, sorry, for the container is J and D, I should say. A and H is for the bullets, which again I don't find completely accurate. But for the barrel, it's J and D, and J's feel grey and D is black. But it doesn't tell you what bit is the field grey and what bit is the black. So I actually had to get a magnifying glass out and look at their paint instructions to see this item on the paint instructions. So you can see it, but you've got to work it out. You've got to find it, and you've got to have a magnifying glass because it was tiny. So again, not really being very overt about it. You know, you have to do a lot of cross-referencing to find anything. Right, we'll give those a moment to dry. I'll go and clean my brush, and then what we're going to do is we'll paint them in brass and let that dry, and then we'll do the tips in copper. Now, actually, while we've got the black paint out, we can paint the anemometer, which the body of which is black. But if we're going to paint all of this black so that the brass element can be picked out later on top of the black. So now this has to be a semi-gloss black, which the paint I'm using won't be. Dries so quickly that sometimes you're not sure if it's an area you've not painted or whether it's just dried. There we go. So we can leave that to dry off. So put that to one side for a moment. And by the looks of it, our black is nearly dry. So I'm just checking that there's nothing else that needs to be black while we've got the black paint out. It might be worth doing a little bit of weathering on the box to give it a sort of slightly scuffed up look, which I imagine these were refilled and put in as cassettes all the time, and therefore got quite a battering one way or another. See what it comes out like. Right, we'll put the brass down first, I think. Makes the most sense to me. So I've already thinned these down. I'm using the ICM brass and copper, which have both been thinned just with some water. Now, it doesn't matter if we get some on the middle bit that's not supposed to be metal, but we'll try not to. Okay, we just got to do the copper tips on that one. Now, in a way, this is going to be more tricky, so just going to clean the brush off. Okay, I think that looks okay. Right, I'm going to clean this brush and then we'll do the copper. Right, copper tips now. Not sure how distinguishable copper will be, but I think you'll be able to tell. Okay, well that's the ammunition part of the ammunition belt done for there. This again will be a little bit more tricky, so I'm just going to wash the brush off, unload all the paint, reshape the point. Make sure I've only got a tiny amount of paint on the brush. Okay, so again, bullets are done. Now while we've got the brass paint out, we can go in and paint the anemometer. So let's do that. Okay, it's just, don't know whether it's just the light or shadow or what, but one of them doesn't seem to be coming up quite as bright as the others. There we go. Just make sure we've not missed anything before we can clean this lot up. Right, so that's that done. So we've just got to give that a coat of varnish, and then we can put the decal on, and then that's that part completed anyway. Right, last thing we've got to do is the strap, which on the instructions is unbleached linen, which is Humbrol 121, which we're using. This is the colour called out in the instructions. As you can see, it's an enamel. So I've just thinned that down and got it all prepped up, so hopefully this should look pretty good once it's on. Because it's a pale colour and we're applying it onto a black, it may well need a second coat, but we'll see how it gets on. Okay, I'll let that dry off, then I'll give it a second coat and then I'll come back to you. Right, last element of this now is getting this bit that wraps around the cassette painted in. So this is the same interior colour that we've used throughout the build. So it's the Vallejo 7830 German Field Grey. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry and then we'll give it a second paint out. We've got these bombs, I've got 4 of these, which are all the same colour. So we can get these painted in while we wait. So we'll do it in 2 stages. We'll do the top half, let it dry, and then we can do the tail bit. Okay, I'll get the rest of them done, then I'll come back. Right, the moment has arrived. I'm just taking the paint off the connection points, that's done. The moment has arrived where we need to get the tail on, which is the last major part of the construction of this. So it connects on this point at the tip, and then it's got these 2 little points here and here which plug in either side. So I'm just going to dry fit it first. I can't see it particularly well because you can see it. Right, okay. Yeah. Right, that's going to fit okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to glue in this point and this point that's facing me and I can see, and we'll leave that until till I can swap it round, and probably do that off camera just because of how big this is and how much space it takes up on my desk. So just a touch of glue on this. And off we go. So if we plug it in at the back first, and that lines me up there. I need to try and get that in on that side, so there we go. Feel that raising up. Right, so I'm just going to hold that in place for a minute. Right, well, you get the idea, but I need to look at this end on to get the geometry, so I'm switching you off for a moment. Jumping around a little bit, but builds get a bit like that towards the end. So the next thing that I want to do is put in the windscreen here, which plops into there. So just gonna dry fit it, and the peg is too big for the hole, so let's widen the hole. Let's try that. Yeah, that's good. So I finished the leather. I actually used, because I did this off camera, I actually used this. It's designed for going through your airbrush as a shader, but if you decant a little bit, you can also use it as like a wash. So that's how I did it. I went over the dark leather colour that we've put on, and it's like a blue-grey colour, and it works really well on there, and it's just highlighting the all the little recesses in there. So now that's done, we can get this on. Just need to find my glue applicator. Okay, just a small amount of CA. I'm just putting it in. I'm not going all the way along the length. I'm just putting it like spot welding it, if you like. Of course, the trick is to try and make sure that it goes straight down in the correct position. So it's in the hole, I need to look at it from above because you've actually got the best view, so just bear with me. There we go, that is our windshield on. Awesome. So just installed this part. We had to drill a 0.75mm hole for the leg that's closest to you, and then the other two just sit on the surface. So that is that in. We've got a decal to put on it, and I just want to gloss coat the black first. But yeah, that's a delicate little part in place and done. Gonna rig this back end now. I need a little bit more light. Bring that down lower. No, can't do that because it gets in your way. Well, we will do the best we can because I want you to see what we're doing. So we have a little hole just at this point here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip the end of the fishing line in the CA and then poke the fishing line. Don't need that much. Poke the fishing line into the hole. There we go. There we go, that's in, and then we want to have it set in the right direction, which is that way. Right, so next job is we need to get a little brass tube for it. And we want to get the brass tube on the line here. There we go. Thread it underneath the little support struts there. Okay. So the next task is to thread it through the top of this part here. Well, that wasn't so bad. Right, and then finally we need to thread it back through that little brass tube. Then we can set it all up. This is always the most tricky bit. Right, there we go. Right, so that is threaded on. So I'll pull it tight, get my tube down, and then we can just glue that into place. That locks everything together, so the glue's holding the two ends of the fishing line together, and it's also sealing the end of the tube, so that's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to fully trim this just yet. Oh, actually it has dried, so enough to do it. There we go. Now then, just want to trim this a bit closer. That can be coloured in with a Sharpie when we touch up all the others. So this needs another run over as well because it's been spray painted since it was originally threaded through there. But that control line is actually attached to the wheel. If you remember, we threaded it all the way through, comes through the bulkhead, so that's connected as it should be, which is pretty cool. Right, so I can get on and do that on the other side, and then we've got some other bits and pieces to do, and then we're pretty much on touch-up and final gloss and what have you, so feels like we're edging closer to the end, doesn't it? There's a little ring that we need to install onto there, so that is my next task. I had to paint it in 2 stages because there was no way of painting the whole thing without holding it somewhere. So yeah, and it just basically sits on these 4 feet there. So it's probably going to be more tricky than it looks. But we'll start by putting a bit of glue down on each one, and then we'll see if we can get it aligned and bob it on. Now I can't see unless I have my magnifying glasses on, but there is a sort of slight shape to the top, so it'll cradle the ring. Okay. There we go, that appears to be on. Actually, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. Excellent. And then the next part that goes down is this this part here, which we mount the gun onto. So let's find the gun, which is drying off over here. There we go. So the gun mounts onto this at this little connection point here. So let's just see how easily that goes on. And then it glues, so it just clips on like that, and then it goes into that location hole there and should lean against the ring, like, well, depends on how you want to do it. I think having it off at an angle a little bit would probably look good. That's not quite reaching the ring. I can't see because the camera's in the way. So when you look at the instructions, you just dig them out. You can see from that middle leaning onto there. Only it doesn't want to do that, does it? Let me have a play with that and I'll come back to you. It dropped down into the hole a little bit too far. So I'm not going to glue it into the floor, just going to glue it onto the ring. So let's do that. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Just got to glue that back on now. How annoying. Okay, I'll give that a moment to dry. Still got a little bit of weathering to do on that. And then once that's dry, we can install the ammunition belt that goes on the top. Okay, that was fiddly, but it's done.